Hello, welcome to another episode of Charles Reviews. Today we're going to be discussing what gives Bitcoin its value and how national authorities use fiat as a form of control and surveillance. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and of course hit that notification button. Let's get into it. So we all know it's happening. Why is cash declining? We can see here that Sweden's in the lead since it has the least amount of cash in circulation, followed by the UK, the US, the Eurozone and Japan. The IMF predicts central banks to issue digital currencies. The International Monetary Fund believes that central banks may issue digital currencies in the future, according to a report published on June 27th. According to the IMF's article, most central banks are not interested in issuing an entirely anonymous digital token, as the institutions want transactions to ultimately be traceable by authorities when necessary. However, we're told that in some instances, institutions are considering portioning off a subset of tokens reserved for large holdings and transactions, and only making those transactions traceable. And this quite nicely touches on the next article brought to you by Bitcoin Magazine, which states that as cash fades, will Bitcoin keep protest alive in the surveillance age? Over the past 5 years, the art of protests has evolved. We're told that governments are increasing their ability to monitor crowds, but individuals are fighting back. The article goes on to state that Hong Kong gives us a glimpse of what protests could increasingly look like in the surveillance age. Cash is still the privacy king, it says. Hong Kong has purchased burner SIM cards with cash to join Telegram protest coordination groups without disclosing their everyday identities. Students top up their public transportation cards with cash instead of using their normal ID-linked Octopus cards, to prevent the authorities from knowing what they're doing and where they're exiting metro stations at demonstration points. Cash is disappearing. Only an estimated 8% of all daily global financial transactions are done with paper or metal money, a number that can be expected to sink asymptotically to zero over the next decade. And for all of you who do your reading and your research, I'm sure you all know that there's a dichotomy between a token as a form of exchange and a token as a smart contract. And we see it here with this article from CoinDesk, Billions to Trillions, Crypto Assets and the Inevitability of Digitization. 10 years after the invention of Bitcoin, the general market is starting to realize, with a big push from Facebook, that digital money using blockchain technology is on the way. We are told that securities will go digital because they can. Ownership is essentially data. Society agrees that owner X has rights to asset Y and protects these rights with the power of the courts and the police. Like any data ownership, it can be digitized. Ownership is essentially becoming a digital value which can be broken down into smaller chunks that can then flow instantly all across the world. The main feature of digitization is not that securities are stored in zeros and ones, that's electronic. It's that digitized securities can flow instantly across global networks. So I guess you want to know what my opinion is on the matter, specifically what gives Bitcoin its value and how this ties into fiat surveillance. You have to understand how businesses work and how they generate capital. Businesses, specifically technology company businesses, generate value through the long-term prospect of cash flow, future cash flow, in other words. And the same logic is true of Bitcoin. Investors expect Bitcoin to generate future value because it's anti-fragile and because it has something called peer-to-peerness, which increases over time relative to the decrease of physical cash's peer-to-peerness. So physical cash is peer-to-peer. It's essentially the same as a cryptographic transaction, But as fiat becomes more digitized, as it becomes intangible, in other words, as it becomes numbers on a screen, on a smartphone in your pocket, or on your computer, or on your laptop, the ability to transact in a private way becomes more and more eroded. It is this ability to transact person to person or peer to peer which gives Bitcoin its value once cash in its physical form, in its physical manifestation, ceases to exist. For example, in the UK, where I'm from, money, capital, makes up 30% of the circulating supply. The rest is digitized. Once I'm no longer able to meet someone on a street corner and purchase their watch, for example, the loss of cash's peer-to-peerness is what's actually going to enable me to transact in a private way. And that's what gives Bitcoin its future value. And anti-fragility or anti-fragile properties are another thing that also give Bitcoin its value. And I'll be talking about anti-fragility in my next video. So that's all we've got for today's episode. Be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. And you can also join me in my Telegram chat group. I'll put the link down below in the description. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.